together, and bam, here we are. Right? So what kinds of things, when you came out of the womb, what kinds of things did you already know?
How to cry.
You knew how to cry, okay? Especially after the doctor slapped you. Right? I happen to slap him back. Right? What else did you know?
How to eat.
How to eat. How to breathe. Right? The things you came out of the womb knowing, was that enough for you to survive in the environment in which you live? No, it wasn't. So there are those things that are innate to us, like some of our reflexes are things that we had no control over, like try to poke yourself in the eye, and you blink, or you get surprised and you have some kind of physical reaction to different things. So that's considered our first nature. So that's our first nature. Everything else that we've learned, we will refer to as second nature. All right? So first nature is all the stuff you were born, quote unquote, knowing, kind of reflexes, suckling, all sorts of things like that, heart beating, lungs, all that kind of stuff. And then everything else is secondary, or that secondary piece of learning. All right? So I want to talk a little bit about, because I want to get back to this implicit bias thing, because again, it's not our fault, but it is now our responsibility. All right? And so there's a certain kind of way that we learn to deal or think about the world, or we've adapted ourselves to engage the world in a specific kind of way. And typically what happens is that we have this thing called our mindset or our paradigm, the way we see the world, and it gets set in this particular way. We have our conscious mind, we have our creative subconscious, and then we have our subconscious. All right? So in our conscious mind, what does it mean to be conscious?
Aware.
It means to be aware, right? It means to be alive. It means to be awake, conscious. All right? So how do we get information into our conscious mind, or in our awake state? How do we get information?
Through the senses.
Through the senses, the five senses. Name them. Sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. Right? So our five senses, and some people say we also can get information through our intuitive sense or our sixth sense. Right? So what we do is we take that through our conscious mind, we take all that information in, and then it goes through a set of social lenses. And the social lenses are those categories that we're broken up into by our society. And different societies have different social lenses. But let's name a few of the social lenses that we deal with here in the United States. What are some of the social lenses or social categories that we use to define or make people distinct in the United States?
Race.
Race is one, or perceived race.
Language.
What's that?
Language.
Language. All right, what else? Status, some kind of economic status. What else?
Education.
Education.
Level of affluence.
Level of affluence. All right. Gender, I like to add that one, and oftentimes religious affiliations or non-religious affiliation. So those are social lenses. Now, what's unique or interesting about lenses? They focus, right? Lenses focus. What else do they do?
They can blur.
They can also blur or distort, right? So lenses either focus or distort information. So the conscious mind takes in all of this pure information, it goes through these social lenses, and in some way it gets distorted. So then that information goes to our social lenses, and it creates something called TMUS. Now this is a technical term, so be careful if you use it. Totally made up stuff. Or schema. Right? So our conscious mind takes this information in, it goes through these social lenses, it creates this totally made up stuff or this schema, and that gets written into our subconscious. And so just like the darkness being bad and light being good, it's something that we don't even think about because it becomes a part of our subconscious. All right? So I know you're asking, what does this have to do with implicit bias, and how does this help me overcome it? But I'm gonna bring it all together. All right. So so that gets written to our subconscious, and then it gets acted upon by our creative subconscious. And the creative subconscious's job is to say yes to anything that is in the subconscious. All right. So all it is, and let's use this as a metaphor, right? So our conscious mind is the recorder. The subconscious is the DVD. And the creative subconscious is the DVD player. All right, does that work for folks? And some folks are doing the Blu-ray thing. I haven't gotten that advanced yet. Right? And so all the creative subconscious does is play whatever is in the subconscious. Right? So does your DVD player really care what DVD is inside the player? No, it doesn't, right? It could be, Devil Wears Prada. It could be, The Matrix, or it could be Pooh's Big Adventure, right? The DVD player doesn't play. It will only play what is in the player. Well, your mind is very much the same way. And what ends up happening is, through our social lenses, we start getting distorted information that gets plugged into our subconscious that our DVD player just plays. So we end up doing things and acting in ways that we're not consciously aware of because it's on our face. Does that metaphor work? All right. So in the event that my children are done watching Pooh's Big Adventure and I want to watch X-Men First Class, what do I have to do to change the movie that's in my DVD player? I have to eject Pooh's Big Adventure and put in what? X-Men First Class. So I have to take out what is in my subconscious and replace it with something that I want. All right? Is this making sense? Okay, cool. So how do I do that, Andre? It's a very simple process that I'll explain to you. You have to change your habits, your attitudes, your beliefs, and your expectations. All right? So what are habits?
Things you do and think about.
Things that you do and you don't even think about. Why do you do them and not think about them? Because you've done them so long. 7 at 7. When I was 7 years old, my parents would prepare me for bed. And there were 3 things that they were checking for before I went to bed. They made sure that I brushed my teeth, I washed behind my ears, and I had a big spoonful of cod liver oil. Fast forward 30 years. Before I go to bed, what do? I brush my teeth, I wash behind my ears, and I do not drink cod liver oil. Right? Why do I do those things after all of that time? Why am I still brushing my teeth and washing behind my ears before I go to bed? Because it is now a habit. Before it was a habit, what was it? Starts with the R and ends in teens. It was a routine. Right? So if we want to have good habits, we must first start with having good routines. So what is the difference between a routine and a habit?
Routine you have to think about a little bit.
A routine that you have to think about, and I knew at what time was I going to do my routine.
When your parents knew you.
But when did I know that it was going to happen?
Before you went to bed.
At 7. I knew at 7 o'clock I was going to get ready for bed. Even if I didn't want to, even if it pushed the envelope, the expectation was that at 7 o'clock I start preparing for bed. Right? So not only is it something that you have to think about, but it's also something that you have to schedule. So to start establishing good habits, you must have good routines. So how does that relate to implicit bias and the stuff that we do? We have to consciously think about the types of behaviors that we want, purposefully. Now, people will laugh, particularly at white people. I don't know why I'm picking on white people today. But they will laugh at white people because white people will say, well, I have a black friend And people of color particularly find that very humorous because they have tons of black friends, right?